across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good morning. It's a dramatic day, particularly in the Middle East, where the US and Israel have been bombing Iran. Iran, similarly, has been bombing Israel, and explosions have been reported in Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, in Bahrain, and in Saudi Arabia. It's a dramatic day. There's a lot to reflect on, and we'll go live to the Middle East as soon as we can. Our correspondent is in and out of shelters, as are many people in Israel this morning. We will go to him as soon as we can. We'll also reflect on what President Trump has said about this and what's happening here at home. The UK was not involved. The Prime Minister is holding a Cobra Emergency Committee meeting this morning. We'll also be reflecting on a dramatic couple of days in UK politics, because the Gorton and Denton by-election has really shaken things up. The Green Party won that seat, the rise of sectarian politics, and the fact that Keir Starmer has called the Greens extreme and a threat to Britain. We'll talk about all of that. In fact, we'll talk to a Labour MP in just a minute. We'll reflect on what President Trump has said and on what you're saying as well. So much to discuss this Saturday morning. Stay with us here on Talk and give us your thoughts on 0344 499 1000. I'd love to hear whatever you have to say about these dramatic developments. You can text me 87222 with the word Talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp text message on the main number. You can send me a WhatsApp voice message on the main number, and please do keep them to less than a minute so we get as many people on air as we can between now and 12:30. You can also give me a ring on the main number, which is of course 0344 499 1000. Let's keep it talk and talk about the dramatic developments in the Middle East today. Well, Donald Trump announced these strikes this morning with an 8-minute video on Truth Social. This is some of it.
The United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world.
That's Donald Trump telling us what has happened. Our own government here in the UK within the last few minutes, a government spokesman said Iran must never be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon, and that is why we have continually supported efforts to reach a negotiated solution. Our immediate priority is the safety of UK nationals in the region, and we will provide them with consular assistance available 24/7. As part of our long-standing commitment to the security of our allies in the Middle East, we have a range of defensive capabilities in the region, which we have recently bolstered. We stand ready to protect our interests. We do not want to see further escalation into a wider regional conflict. While they may not get their wish, as I say, explosions have been heard in Qatar, in the United Arab Emirates, in Bahrain, and in Saudi Arabia as well this morning. A lot is happening. The UK did not participate in the strikes, we're told. We're also told that the Prime Minister will chair a meeting of Cobra, the government's emergency committee, this morning. The additional defensive capabilities deployed earlier this year to the sovereign base areas include radar systems, counter-drone systems, F-35 jets, and ground-based air defence. And in January, the UK also deployed Typhoon jets to Qatar from the RAF's Joint Typhoon Squadron for defensive purposes. So there is a lot happening today, but not from the UK perspective. Donald Trump elaborated on the threat from the Middle East. This is what he said.
To the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want. So let's see how you respond.
Donald Trump speaking directly to the Iranian people there with so much communication disruption. It'll be interesting to see whether that actually gets through to them, but I'm sure at some point it will. He also talked about Iran's nuclear capability and what the US has been trying to do to stop that during his 8-minute message.
Iran refused, just as it has for decades and decades. They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore. Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland.
Donald Trump speaking there, he gave that 8-minute address. It went out on Truth Social, and we know that there are dramatic developments happening in the Middle East. He says we're going to destroy Iran's missiles, confirming that the US has begun major combat operations in Iran. Our Middle East correspondent is Yoram Confino. He is in and out of shelters, as are so many people in Israel at the moment. We'll go to him when we can during the programme. I would have liked to have talked to him now, but of course that's just not possible because the Israeli people are in and out of those shelters, and Yotam is not just a journalist but also a citizen. We'll hopefully speak to him before too long. I want to speak to Graham Stringer now, who's the Labour MP for Blakely and Middleton. Graham, you're very welcome to the programme, and thank you for joining me. What do you make of this action by the United States? What's your view?
My view is the big picture, not about the detail of what's happening today, which is frightening, is that there will not be peace of any sort in the Middle East until this a regime in Iran disappears. It's genocidal. It is dedicated to eradicating Israel and killing Jews. That's its policy. It's been the policy of Hezbollah, Hamas, and other proxies there. So overall, I hope the Americans are successful. Having said that, there are many, many lessons from conflicts in the Middle East where the West is involved that go wrong. And I have no idea, as I suspect nobody else does, what details there are to support regime change in Iran, where the troops will be on the ground. It usually goes badly wrong if troops are on the ground. So I hope this removes missiles, the threat of developing nuclear weapons in Iran. I hope it removes the regime and we get a more democratic regime supported by the Iranian people. But the step from here to there will be very difficult indeed.
It's interesting you mentioned all of that, and I wonder, is it right that the UK wasn't involved, or should we be supporting the United States in this, Graham, in your opinion?
Well, I've no doubt that our Attorney General, who thinks that international law, which doesn't apply to China, doesn't apply to Iran, doesn't apply to Russia, should apply to us, and he will be giving very negative advice on this. I'm reading between the lines. I think the government has gone as far as they can, given what will be very negative advice from the Attorney General. We should have an aim of stopping nuclear weapons in Iran and changing that regime. People talk about whether Iran is a threat or not. It's clearly a threat. It's a threat in the United Kingdom. They've got paid agents trying to assassinate Iranian people in this country. It's a threat to our bases in the Middle East. So I think in whatever way we can be supportive, our armed forces are not very strong at the moment. We should be supporting any initiative that tries to introduce democracy and regime change in Iran.
Yes, and but that is not the view of Keir Starmer. That is not the view of Lord Hermer, as you say. I would imagine it's the view of Reform UK. I'd imagine it's the view of the Conservatives. We'll be speaking to both of them on the Sunday programme tomorrow. No doubt this will dominate. What should the UK do now, do you think?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what the centre of government knows. We should find out what's going on, where there are plans. I was about when the invasion of Iraq took place, and I voted against that. It wasn't the prime reason I voted against, but there was no plan for what happened next.
That is, as you correctly say, that is often a problem. We often do these things as the West and don't have a plan. It was interesting that Donald Trump said a number of weeks ago now, it might even have been as many as a couple of months ago, that he said help is on the way, when we've seen these protests from Iranians, many people risking their lives, many of them being killed, tens of thousands of them being killed. And actually, I wonder if you think Donald Trump's idea and his motivation is more to do with the geopolitical aspect of a threat from Iran and developing a nuclear weapon, or concern for the humanitarian side of things, or maybe it's both. Graham, what do you think?
I think it's probably both. But I've no doubt that the US military and President Trump think that stopping nuclear weapons is the most important thing they can do for their own defense. But obviously, it's not just PR, it's humanitarian. To stop a regime that tortures children and hangs them from cranes in the different cities in Iran is an objective that any decent, humane person would want. But obviously the threat of once Iran has nuclear weapons, it would be very difficult to intervene, because it would be starting a nuclear war. So intervening early is important. It's like the hypothetical question at a much larger level with nuclear weapons. Would a bullet in the head of Hitler in the 30s have stopped 50 million people in Europe dying? And I think that is the issue here. If Iran, who are dedicated to murdering Jews, if Iran gets a nuclear weapon, is that
that's one of these moments in your view? It's one of these sort of act now or pay it later kind of moments.
Yes, I think it is. And I think the mess that was made of Iraq has meant it has been very difficult for Israel, the United Kingdom, the United States, and other democratic countries to do what was necessary, which is to undermine the Iranian regime, which is at war with the West in many ways, both in cyberspace and in its agents and proxies about the Middle East and in Europe.
Just to say that the Foreign Office has told us that today the US and Israel commenced joint military action in Iran. Israeli airspace has now closed. British nationals in the region urged to take sensible precautions, including following advice from regional authorities, staying away from military facilities, and ensuring travel documents are up to date. And I'm just being told that Reuters is saying that the Iranian supreme leader, that's Ayatollah Khomeini, and the president were targeted. So those were the targets of the strikes. We'll bring you more on that from our Middle East correspondent, Yotam Confino, as soon as we have it. Graham, just while I have you, obviously there's been a big political earthquake in the last couple of days domestically. That's not our main story today, of course, but I have you, and I would love to talk to you about that just for a couple of minutes. What do you think what the implications of the Green Party winning in Gorton and Denton will be, particularly for Keir Starmer and the Labour Party, your party?
Well, I think that the crisis moment for Keir Starmer is after the Welsh, Scottish and local elections in May. By-elections come and go. Governments often lose them. I think what is changed by this by-election is that the strategy that the Prime Minister was developing to say that only Labour can stop reform has been shattered by the victory of the Greens, because they stopped reform in Gorton, in effect. So that means that the Labour Party and the leadership of the Labour Party have to go back to their tent and think. And my view, which I've said on this programme before, is the way to be reformed, the way to be the Greens, is to deliver good policies on the ground to stop illegal immigrants coming into the country, improve the health service, improve basic service, and have a clear narrative that we're on the side of people who, by and large, need a Labour government most, which is the poorest people in society.
Graham, thank you. That is Graham Stringer there, the Labour MP for Blakely and Middleton. We have a voice note from Elisa in Chelmsford reacting to this breaking news out of the Middle East. This is what she has to say.
Morning, Peter. I just wanted to say that I'm quite relieved that the action has started. It's finally being taken. I thought Donald Trump's speech was extremely powerful. At this moment in time, all my family and friends in Israel are either in or close to the bomb shelters, and I'm praying for their safety, but I'm also praying for the people of Iran. I believe Donald Trump when he says this is their time to rise up. And can you imagine what a world we'll have once this regime is toppled? We won't have to face that threat with all their proxies. It'll be such a huge relief. And the USA and Israel are fighting for all of us. It's not just about what happens in the region. Iran is a threat to the whole of the West. So I'm really hoping that they'll sort this out once and for all. Have a good show, Peter.
Elisa, thank you. Leslie says, has this useless weak government done anything to support the USA apart from holding a pathetic Cobra meeting? I don't think they're even supporting the USA necessarily. They say they are. Kevin, but they've done nothing constructive anyway. They've done nothing in terms of actual action to do that. Kevin in East Sussex says, morning Peter, the UK probably didn't know about the start of the Iranian attack because they know Starmer will call Mauritius and tell them. No one other than the Chinese and Russians trust him. Keith in the Philippines says, Starmer should be ashamed to his core. What a dreadful specimen masquerading as a UK leader. And Sean says from Bridlington, after losing Gorton and Denton to Islamists yesterday, there's no way Starmer is going to align with the USA and Israel. The voters he wants to appeal to will side with Iran. Lots of interesting comments there. As I say, we hope to go to Yotam Confino, our Middle East correspondent, in a few minutes' time. Obviously, it's a developing situation there and Israelis are in and out of shelters, so we will speak to him as soon as we can. But the Foreign Office confirming that the US and Israel commencing joint military action in Iran. Israeli airspace now closed. British nationals in the region urged to take sensible precautions, including following advice from regional authorities, staying away from military facilities and ensuring travel documents are up to date. Lots more to talk on this. Get your call in 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
The Green Party have won the Denton and Gorton by-election. Labour in third place.
Breaking news that Peter Mandelson has now been arrested. So Mandy and Andy have now both had their collars felt.
What would Andrew Loney tell them to do?
To come clean, be honest. And if Charles is complicit in this cover-up, which I believe he is, then I think he has to fall on his sword.
When you define sex, or gender or sex, what you mean is biological sex, and that's a man or woman, what you are physically, not what you think you are on a Wednesday afternoon.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, Benjamin Netanyahu has been speaking. We just have the Hebrew at the moment. We'll get that translated and bring it to you as soon as we can. But the government here in this country says, as part of our long-standing commitment to the security of allies in the Middle East, we have a range of defensive capabilities in the region which we have recently bolstered. We stand ready to protect our interests, but they're not part of this attack. It is the US and Israel working in concert. So let's just remind ourselves what the President of the United States, President Donald Trump, has been saying about US major combat operations in Iran starting this morning.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world.
Donald Trump also spoke about European allies and their role.
To the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want. So let's see how you respond.
Obviously, he was appealing directly to the Iranian people there, but he did speak about European allies too.
Iran refused, just as it has for decades and decades. They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore. Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland.
Well, just to say the UK government isn't involved, and US and Israeli strikes in Iran will have led to Sir Keir Starmer being in Downing Street, being in the Cabinet Office, chairing a meeting of the government's emergency Cobra meeting this morning. Once we hear what comes out of that, we will let you know. We've also heard there are explosions in Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. We will have voices throughout the Middle East and indeed in this country as well, commenting on this, and American voices too, between now and 12:30. So lots to discuss. But I want to go to the debate desk now, as we usually do at this time on a Saturday and Sunday morning. And I'm delighted that James Bealby is with me, political commentator. Great to see you in the studio. How are you doing?
Good to see you, Peter.
And Jack Sellers, former special advisor to Rishi Sunak. Hi, Jack.
Morning, Peter.
So what will be going on in Downing Street at the moment, Jack?
I mean, I think they'll be scrambling a little bit. I saw yesterday that a warning had gone out from the UK to residents in Iran, UK residents in Iran, to sort of start evacuating the country. So, you know, I do think they would have had some sort of heads up on this, just to sort of start getting citizens out of harm's way. But I mean, you know, let's be frank. It's clear in the statement this morning the UK is a bystander in this, as is most of Europe. You know,
is that right? Do you think?
No, I don't think it's right. I mean, you know, for weeks there were stories only last week, which I'm sure you reported on, that the US were asking for UK assistance in potentially using, you know, air bases such as RAF Fairford in the Cotswolds, or Diego Garcia, which is now obviously under increasing scrutiny because of the Chagos Islands deal. And, you know, the UK were blocking them. So, I mean, it is a shame that the UK are sort of sat on the sidelines, because at the end of the day, the Iranian threat is something that is a risk to all of us, not just Israel and the US.
Cobra, of course, is the Cabinet Office briefing room A, and you have lots of people in there from the intelligence services, military, political, communication staff, and all the rest of it. It's a very high-powered committee. But what will they be doing this morning other than really reflecting on this, Jack?
I mean, they'll be trying to get in touch with their counterparts in the US, 100%. I mean, that'll be the first thing. The Prime Minister will go into this Cobra meeting expecting all of the relevant officials, some of the senior defence staff, to have got these briefings from the US about where this is going and the latest intelligence updates. And then Keir Starmer will be scrambling to find a proactive response, essentially, which makes it seem, he won't want to annoy the US, so there'll definitely be some conversations about how they can potentially contribute in the background. We obviously have Middle Eastern sort of deployment ourselves with the base in Cyprus, and obviously we have intelligence capabilities which we could probably assist with. So I imagine at the moment Starmer will be firmly trying to keep on the side of Trump and not annoy his administration, but also there's a new progressive political front.
There's a context to this politically, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a progressive political front now in the UK, which has been reopened, obviously, by the by-election in recent days, where there'll be strong condemnation of this US attack, and Starmer's going to have to try and walk a tightrope to try and find the answers to appease both sides.
What's your take on this, James?
Yeah, I think that's right in terms of the sort of UK political take on it. We've already seen this morning the chair of the House of Commons Foreign Affairs Committee, Emily Thornberry, coming out quite strongly against this action and saying that we shouldn't get involved unless there's a threat to our military bases in the Middle East. So I think Starmer is in a slightly difficult position here because obviously he wants to keep Trump on side, and we do have that ongoing issue with the Chagos Islands, the discussions with America as to whether the deal that we've struck is allowed to go ahead. So I think he will be, obviously he loves foreign policy because it takes him away from his domestic woes, but I think there are real challenges because most people...
What should he do? How can he show leadership in this, James?
I think he has to stand firm with his allies, and obviously we have a very strong Atlantic link with America. That's really important. But at the same time, be aware that, in terms of a threat and a risk to the UK, that's probably relatively minimal.
I want to go live to the Middle East now because Yoram Confino is with us. Our Middle East correspondent is in Israel. Yoram, just tell us what's happening there. Good morning.
Good morning, Peter. I just got a message on my phone. It says in the next few minutes, alerts are expected to be in your area. So right now, I need to find my bomb shelter, which is luckily...
Joram, do you need to get to your shelter right now? Shall we come back to you later?
Yeah, I'm running to the shelter now.
Okay, go to the shelter. Yoram, we'll talk to you later. Go to the shelter. Go to the shelter. His safety is absolutely number one priority there. So we'll talk to Yoram later on because there are... every Israeli who has vast majority of people have a mobile phone, and when they get their alerts, it's a matter of getting to the shelter as quickly as possible because bombs might be imminent. So we don't want to jeopardise Yoram's safety in any way whatsoever. So I just want him to get to those shelters as soon as possible. But as soon as he comes out of there, hopefully before 12:30, we will talk to him. James, sorry I cut you off on your prime there.
No, that's fine. I hope he's okay. That's the most important thing, and that's the point that Starmer should be focusing on, protecting UK nationals around the conflict. But I think the risk to the UK is probably very minimal. So do we want to get drawn into this? No. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we're not standing against our allies. We do have a closer ally with America than we do with Iran. So I think he's in a difficult position. But I think we're in as we heard there. Then we are bystanders. We're not directly involved, so I think it's more of a watching brief at this stage.
Should we be involved, do you think, in your view?
I'm not an expert on the Middle East politics, but I would say no. I wouldn't want to get involved with this because it's about regime change, right? So it's not.
I'm very happy for the Iranian regime to change.
Absolutely, as am I. And we've seen examples of where that's worked. With say Assad in Syria or Hezbollah, but in Iraq it's obviously much harder. So I think if the analogy,
Syria is an interesting question we could talk about all day. But certainly sometimes regime change works. It depends what comes next, doesn't it? But for the Iranian people who are being repressed, murdered. They want rid of the Ayatollah.
But there's a risk that it might not happen. That's the problem. So they might actually embed them. That's the thing. You need to think about what comes next. And if they've done that work and that planning, so Trump's saying this is a way of getting rid of that regime. Obviously, everybody wants that to happen because it's a murderous regime. But what are they putting in place? Are they working with the opposition forces? And do they know that it'll actually be better?
Jack?
Yeah, no, that's the interesting question. Just going back to your Cobra meeting, and your the dial-in there for your colleague. The most important thing Starmer will be pushing for actually is, what are the protections in place for UK citizens? You mentioned just before you brought us on air that, you know, the UAE, Oman, Abu Dhabi, all these places.
Well, Reuters are now reporting explosions heard at Abu Dhabi airport. I've just been handed this. I'll come back to you in a second. US official says Iran is retaliating against multiple US military facilities across the Middle East. This is NBC News reporting this. 4 US bases targeted by Iran simultaneously with multiple missile attacks. I'm going to try these pronunciations. They're Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, Al Salam Base in Kuwait, Al Dhafra Air Base in the United Arab Emirates, and the US 5th Fleet Base in Bahrain. Moments ago, Bahraini state news agency BNA reporting the US Navy's 5th Fleet Centre was subject to a missile attack. Loud explosions in Dubai as well. And the Foreign Office here saying UK citizens in Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar and UAE should seek shelter due to reported missile attacks. British nationals in Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar and the United Arab Emirates should immediately shelter in place. The UK Foreign Office says remain indoors in a secure location, avoid all travel and follow instructions to the local authorities. Iran's Supreme National Security Council as well saying the country's armed forces will give a, as they put it, crushing response to the US and Israeli attacks. The enemy believes that the resilient Iranian nation will surrender to their petty demands through such cowardly actions, the council said in a statement published by the semi-official Mehr news agency. The armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran have begun a crushing response to their malicious actions and will continuously keep the dear public informed. So this is really, really serious. This is absolutely the Iranians coming out fighting in both senses, Jack.
Yeah, no, this is astonishing. I mean, you know, the last few weeks we know that US and Iran have been deep diving into nuclear talks, but everyone knows that the US has been posturing and they have moved lots of military capacity into the Arabian Peninsula. This will not be a huge surprise to the Iranians. If it was, I mean, that would be a huge sort of failure on their part. So I imagine this has been prepared. You know, it went last year when Iran and Israel were in direct conflict, if you remember that, only last year. I mean, it seems like a lifetime ago. But the Iranians, I think, took 18 hours to actually respond to some of the Israel attacks in Iran. This time, they only took 2 hours. They were ready. They were ready. They knew this was coming. But this wider region being drawn in. This will be the interesting conversation for Keir Starmer in the Cobra room this morning. Firstly, we have a lot of British citizens in the UAE, Oman, Bahrain. Lots there. That will be the first priority on the Prime Minister's list. Are these people protected? What measures are in place? Secondly, you know, this is an attack now on the, you know, a lot of British citizens out there. That Starmer will be looking how he can step up his support for Trump in response to this wider regional escalation from the Iranians.
James?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. The safety of British citizens is the first thing. But, you know, they've come out very strongly there. What's going to happen with the Iranian people? Are they going to be encouraged to uprise against the regime?
Because that appears to be what Donald Trump is saying.
Yeah, but that's a real risk.
Why is it a risk?
Well, it's a risk to the citizens.
Well, it's a risk to their lives.
Absolutely.
Because but if the regime is overturned,
but if it's not, then they're going to be much worse off.
Stan has been in touch and says, good morning, Peter. Sadly, Britain cannot do the right thing as far as the Middle East is concerned and stand by the US and Israel. If we were to do so, there should be bloodshed on our streets because of the huge number of Muslim people that have been allowed to settle in this country, most of whom undoubtedly want to see the defeat of the West, in Stan's opinion. Linda says from Worcester, when Starmer talks about standing ready with our allies, I'm assuming he's talking about the ally, the Iranian Islamic regime, as the US no longer trusts us not to snitch on US intention to our enemies. Starmer can't say that we're an ally of the US now, just saying. Dawn in Chelmsford said it looks like Trump has decided that Starmer is irrelevant because he has not been involved in the Iran strike, a view shared by many in the UK, says Dawn. Well, that may well be the point and may well be part of it, of course, but if Starmer had made clear that, for example, our air bases weren't going to be used and that military firepower from the UK wasn't going to be used, well, that is his decision rather than Trump's necessarily. But it does show a really, really interesting and quite crucial relationship between the US and the UK may be in jeopardy in many ways. We've talked about Chagos this week. We talked about all sorts of different things. We're going to continue the debate on the debate desk in a few minutes' time. Stay with us here on Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Jason in the Lake District says, Graham Stringer, clearly no fan of Lord Hermer, very articulate in his thoughts. Yes, Lord Hermer is the Attorney General, and he appears to, he does tell Keir Starmer what's legal and what isn't, and what he can do politically and not. He's been a much criticised Attorney General, it must be said. Thank you to Rob, who says what a spineless coward Starmer is, masquerading as a world leader when in fact he's a fraud and an Islamist supporter. I don't think Starmer is an Islamist supporter, but there we are. A soulless sham of a Prime Minister. Shame on him. Michael says, when you consider Europe has experienced many terror threats from various Iranian-backed terrorist groups, it's a bit embarrassing that NATO is sitting on their hands. We should be standing shoulder to shoulder with the US and Israel. Brian says the point you're missing this morning about whether the UK should support the US action in Iran is that correctly the Americans do not trust the British government. So why would they share any information with them, says Brian in Spain. Is that a fair point, James Bealby, that there appears to be a lack of trust between the Americans and the British? I think there will have been, or there appears to have been, certainly a positive decision not to actually take part in this action, even if it were to be in prospect.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I mean, the objectives of this action are relatively vague, I think. We don't necessarily know what they're going to try and achieve.
Well, I think regime change is pretty straightforward, is it not? I mean, Trump has been talking about, he said help is on the way, and he's been supporting the people who've been protesting.
But it's not just about Britain, obviously. It's a great opportunity to beat up Starmer, as we always enjoy doing that. But, you know, other US allies, people around Europe, people in the Gulf state. So the Gulf state allies, they haven't necessarily come out in support of this. So I think Trump and Israel are sort of standing alone a little bit at the moment, and it's not necessarily about the weakness of Starmer's position. He's aligning with other international allies. Yeah.
Iran has said that it considers all US bases in the region legitimate targets, vowing a crushing response. On the Foreign Office, if you are travelling to Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar and the UAE, they say not to do that. Of course, Israel, I'm sure, is on the list as well, and Iran, I'm sure, has been on the list for a very, very long time. Remain indoors in a secure location, avoid all travel and follow instructions from the local authorities, say the Foreign Office to people who are there. Jack Sellers is with us on the debate desk, as well as James Bealby. You were actually in UAE a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I was in Abu Dhabi, a very a place getting ready for Ramadan, a sort of, you know, heavily sort of British influenced place. English is the sort of majority language there now. It's the language of business over there. Yeah, completely normal. I mean, you know, everyone knew about the American posture in the background and what was going on, so you always thought that this was a possibility, but they were all getting on with their lives.
Were they talking about being struck themselves because of what Iran might do?
No, I don't think so. I don't, you know, from what I'm reading at the moment, live as we're on air, is that, you know, a lot of these missile explosions being heard are actually UAE, Oman, defence shields and other things, you know, shooting down missiles that are flying overhead, because Yemen have got involved as well and are pinging a few missiles. So seems like missiles are just flying overhead everywhere. But I don't necessarily see that, you know, the UAE and others thought that they were going to be a direct risk here, but they clearly are. And this is the problem that it causes for Starmer. You know, we have so many British people over there. We have British bases over there. They will be thinking twofold. What is the impact of British citizens? Are they protected? And how do we potentially use our British influence in the area, our bases, to support Donald Trump?
Just more on the travel front. Some flights to and from destinations in the Middle East have been suspended with immediate effect after Israel and the US launched attacks in Iran. I've just been handed this piece of paper that's telling me that Wizz Air, Qatar Airways and Virgin Atlantic have all cancelled services to the region today. Virgin says it cancelled its VS 400 service from Heathrow to Dubai, which was due to depart about half an hour ago as a precautionary measure. A spokesman said the safety and security of our customers and people is always our top priority. We apologise for any inconvenience caused. Wizz Air director Rachel Ray said all flights to Israel, Dubai, Abu Dhabi and Amman would be suspended. Wizz Air confirms that following the recent escalation of the security situation in Iran, the airline is suspending all flights to and from Israel, Dubai, Abu Dhabi and Amman with immediate effect up to and including the 7th of March. So that's obviously next weekend. The airline is closely monitoring developments and remains in ongoing contact with local and international authorities, aviation safety agencies, security authorities and relevant government bodies. Operational decisions will continue to be reviewed and the flight schedule may be adjusted as the situation evolves. Qatar Airways said flights to and from Doha suspended to the closure of Qatari airspace. So clearly this is having an effect here already, James.
Yeah, absolutely. I would sensible advice to stay put. You know, we don't know how this is going to play out, so it's obviously things are moving extremely quickly, just as we've been on air this morning. You know, the story's been changing, so those businesses have got to take that decision pragmatically.
Yes, and that's a reasonable one to take in the circumstances. Lots to report, lots to chew over this morning. We're going to talk a little bit about the political situation here in the UK as well. Jack Sellers is a former special advisor to Rishi Sunak, and James Bealby keeps a very, very close eye as a political commentator. But I'm interested in your views on all of this, not just what's happening in the Middle East, but what's happening in this country too. Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. We'll be back with Jack and with James in just a second.
The Green Party have won the Denton and Gorton by-election. Labour in third place.
Breaking news that Peter Mandelson has now been arrested. So Mandy and Andy have now both had their collars felt.
What would Andrew Loney tell them to do?
To come clean, be honest. And if Charles is complicit in this cover-up, which I believe he is, then I think he has to fall on his sword.
When you define sex, or gender or sex, what you mean is biological sex, and that's a man or woman, what you are physically, not what you think you are on a Wednesday afternoon.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Leaders around the world are responding to what has happened. Israel's strikes on Iran and the US's strikes on Iran as well. Iran fighting back and striking a number of US air bases right across the Middle East as well. The IDF, in their latest update, this is the Israeli Defense Force, the Israeli Army, say missile alerts had been activated in several areas of the country after more launches from Iran. The public is asked to obey the instructions of the Home Front Command. At this time, the Air Force is working to intercept and attack whatever necessary to eliminate the threat. The defence is not hermetic, and therefore the instructions of the Home Front Command must continue to be obeyed. Isaac Herzog is the president of Israel. He says, "Thank you, President Trump, the leader of the free world, for taking a historic and courageous decision in the Israeli president's view. I fully support you and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and your teams in this decision to launch a bold combined operation against the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism, which is responsible for decades of mass terror and murder around the world and aims to become a nuclear armed state. I sincerely hope that this operation will bring historic change and a better future for the whole Middle East and the entire world," says the President of Israel. "Let me be clear to all of those who seek to threaten to harm us. The people of Israel are a strong nation. Nobody can break our spirit. To the brave men and women of the IDF, I trust and support you. An entire nation stands behind you. May God bless you all, and may all return home to peace. To the United States military servicemen and women conducting this noble mission, thank you," says Isaac Herzog, the President of Israel. "Our partnership is a true blessing, advancing hope, prosperity and security. Together we will prevail. May God bless you, and may you all return home in peace. We stand together with our friends and allies in the Middle East who are under attack from the Iranian regime. May God bless them and safeguard them all from harm. To the people of Iran, I hope and pray that you will soon be able to see a better future for freedom." So a lengthy statement there from Isaac Herzog, the President of Israel. Kemi Badenoch has also responded. I'll read that in a second. But British Airways, now the latest airline to cancel flights to Tel Aviv and Bahrain until the 3rd of March, which is Tuesday. According to reports, an overnight BA flight from Heathrow to Doha has turned around and is returning to London. A spokesman for British Airways said, "We are closely monitoring the situation and have taken the operational decision to cancel our flights to Tel Aviv and Bahrain up to and including the 3rd of March, that's Tuesday, and have cancelled today's service to Amman. Safety is always our top priority, and we're contacting our customers to advise them of all the travel options." And Kemi Badenoch, as I said, the leader of the Conservatives, leader of the opposition, she has supported the US and Israeli attacks on Iran. We do have a UK government spokesman statement, but nothing from Keir Starmer just yet. The Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, said, "I stand with our allies in the US and Israel as they take on the threat of the Islamic Republic of Iran and its vile regime, the same regime that carries out attacks on the UK and our citizens, that seeks to build nuclear weapons that would threaten our country, and that brutally repressed pro-democracy protests only months ago and murdered thousands of its own people. Under my leadership, the Conservative Party will always put our national security first and work with our allies to make the world a safer place," says Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the opposition Conservative leader. Quick reaction, because I do want to talk about politics in the UK, but this is obviously a dynamic, breaking situation, a huge and very important world situation, but I do want to talk about domestic politics in a second. But just a reaction to all of what you've heard just in the last few minutes. Firstly from James Spielby, then from Jack Sellers. James.
Yeah, I think it's a very fluid situation, and I think that, Kemi Badenoch's statement is relatively straightforward and sensible. I don't think there's any particular difference between the government on this issue.
Jack?
Yeah, no, I mean, Kemi, I don't think was going to go any other way. I think the news story would be if she went the opposite way and condemned this stance. I also think that Nadhim Zahawi, who is now obviously of reform, has also supported it and said the UK needs to support the US. So going a bit further, but yeah, I mean, it's just Starmer now. We need to see how Starmer reacts and what his position is on this.
Breaking news, and at least one person is dead in Abu Dhabi. That is the United Arab Emirates confirming that. At least one person has been killed after strikes in Abu Dhabi. That person died after debris fell on a residential area in Abu Dhabi. Its defence ministry said in a post on Twitter, also causing some material damage. It added that several missiles targeting the country have been successfully intercepted following a blatant attack today, as they put it, by Iranian ballistic missiles. Missile interceptions were also reported in Qatar, Kuwait and Jordan. We'll bring you more on this as it happens. It is a dynamic breaking news situation. This is the US and Israel attacking Iran, Iran attacking back, and not just attacking various bits of various military bases of the United States, but elsewhere as well. Nigel Farage has put on Twitter in the last few minutes, the Prime Minister needs to change his mind on the use of our military bases and back the Americans in this vital fight against Iran. So that is a direct challenge to the Prime Minister. He is chairing a COBRA meeting this morning, a Government Emergency Committee in Whitehall. So this is Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, saying the Prime Minister needs to change his mind on the use of our military bases and back the Americans in this vital fight against Iran. What do you make of that, Jack Sellers?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of fully support the position, given that everything that's going on now in the UAE. I mean, I see Kuwait has just put out a statement saying that they hold the right to defend themselves as well. So it'll be interesting to see how these sort of allies in the region get drawn in. But this presents, and this is a segue into the next thing we're going to talk about in domestic politics. But I see also there's a Green MP who's tweeted saying that this is all illegal and Starmer should use every lever he has to uphold international law. This exactly presents, you've got Reform on the one hand, who should say we should be proactive and actually involved, utilising all of our force in the area. And then you've got the Greens pulling Starmer to the other side, who are saying this is completely illegal and we should be condemning it. I mean, it's a tricky day for Keir Starmer, as well as a very worrying day for everyone who's living in the Middle East right now.
I don't think Starmer would be particularly motivated to respond to what the Green Party or Reform do. He's basing his information on the facts he's getting at the centre in the COBRA meeting. So
but there is, of course, political context to this of the last few days. We know what we've seen. The Green Party getting over 40%, Reform coming second, Labour into third. Clearly these big international issues are things that people care about at home as well, James.
Yeah, of course. But I think we don't know the facts, do we? We don't know what Starmer's response is going to be. So it's very easy to say, it's an illegal war. There probably isn't a huge amount of international law justification for the action. But at the same time, saying, we should be going in all guns blazing when we don't necessarily know the facts at this stage, I think it's a bit disingenuous, really.
Do you think it's disingenuous?
Look, I mean, on the international law point, what I'd say on this, I've been thinking this for a while over the last years. We've seen sort of Europe and the UK included in that, our position in world affairs sort of diminish, right? You know, US just going ahead, leading negotiations, Russia, Ukraine, the Israel sort of Palestine situation, now with Iran. And, you know, I just worry that in the world, that we in the Europe have been sort of happily saddled with this sort of, you know, talks about memorandums and sanctions and the like. And if anything, over the last 5 years, it's shown is that these things just don't work. You know, our adversaries, our hostile states around us, operate outside of these norms. They don't recognise international law and these other things. They are important, absolutely. And, you know, for 70 years, they've sort of maintained peace since the end of World War II. But, you know, what Trump recognises is that that's not the things which are going to deter these people from doing nasty things to our countries and to our freedoms. And he's taking preemptive action to sort of stop that. And that's what sort of the Green Party and the likes have sort of got to start realising. We don't live in the world which we want to live in. We live in the realities around us.
And the reality around us includes the political context, James. What do you make of what happened in Gordon Denton on Thursday?
Well, absolutely fascinating, of course. You know, keen student of UK politics. I think that there's a danger of reading too much into a by-election, a midterm by-election. Every party, whoever they may be, over the last 30, 40 years, probably going back to the SDP in the early 80s, have been defeated and done badly. Midterms elections always go badly for ruling governments. So that's the main sort of point. And I think if we're saying, well, we can then assume that our politics is going to be polarised between Reform on one side and Greens on the left, I don't think that's right. I think there are some areas of the country where...
You don't think our politics is going to be polarised?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think we're still largely a two-party system.
Really?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. So,
I mean, we are in practicality in terms of how it works at the moment, but surely every piece of data we have from polls, from by-elections, from how the country feels and what their reaction to what Keir Starmer is doing actually says that's not the case any longer.
In terms of the polls, yeah, but in terms of our political system, the first past the post system, it's geared against a sort of multi-party outcome. So you'll see in Manchester, obviously it's a sort of more left-leaning place. The Greens did well, but in terms of sort of university towns and cities, Greens will do well against Labour. So they will be under attack there, but in other parts of the country, the Greens won't be the threat to Labour.
Do you agree with that analysis, Jack?
No, I do. I do think we are. I personally, I know you take everything James says about the political system, and it does. You know, it's not as easy as some other European countries for us to end in these sort of coalition situations. But I do think the country is now split across sort of 4 parties. 2 of them, I mean, the extreme left, the extreme right, being the more prominent at the moment in terms of polls. You look at most of the polls, and I know this is one. It won't become a surprise to a failure of, you know, the Conservatives. We got our pace in 2024, and we came out and the country said 14 years. Problems are still here. Country slowed down as it has done over decades, essentially. Give Labour this sort of a chance to get in and change things, and they haven't, right? And it's been a complete shambles over 14 months to 2 years. So everyone's moving to these fringes. But I actually think this will cause problems on the electoral front when it comes to a national general election, because, you know, these different seats, the left and right are split between Tories and Reform, Green and Labour, and where the splits are more sort of recognisable in different seats. In city areas it'd be the left more split, in other areas it'd be the right more split. We will end up with this fracture of, I think, a sort of Reform Labour domination potentially across the country at the moment, if I was to call it. So yeah, it's a four-party state.
Jack and James, thank you. We're going to leave it there for the debate desk because Yotam Confino is with us from the Middle East. Yotam, I trust you're safe. Everything okay?
Yeah, I'm all good. This is the 3rd time we've been running for shelter since this morning. So every time we have to wait till we get all clear from the Home Front Command. So I've spent quite a few hours in bomb shelters this morning.
So for Israelis, you woke up to this, you were aware of it obviously from the early hours. What have you been told so far, and what do you understand in regard to what's happening there?
So it's a very extensive military operation. I think that we know that already, but already from the morning hours, we could see that Israel had struck not just Tehran, but several other places across Iran. The United States, of course, took part of it, so it's a joint attack. And according to my sources, we should expect this to be a prolonged campaign. And it really depends on the Iranian response. How far are the Iranians willing to go? Are they going to go all out? Which I think at this point, it looks like they will. Then this is going to be a very long campaign. both the United States and Israel are targeting both military facilities, but also, of course, government buildings. We hear in Israel, in Israeli media, that Israel has taken out the commander-in-chief of the Iranian army, and they also took out the head of the military intelligence. Now, we haven't gotten that confirmed yet, and we also heard reports.
So we're hearing, sorry, just go back a second, the head of military intelligence may have been taken out. And who was the other person you mentioned there, Jan?
And that was the head of the army.
Okay.
So those two, apparently, those are some of the high-ranking figures.
So these are clearly very targeted strikes then?
Yeah, very much. Look, if you want to topple the regime, you need to go not just against their nuclear sides and their ballistic missile programs, you need to go against the IRGC, you need to target all of their infrastructure, and of course you need to start taking out their leadership. This is what Israel did with Hamas and Hezbollah, and it's essentially the same recipe that we're seeing here with Iran.
And what happens next, do you think? Because we're seeing this all over the Middle East. There are so many different targets, American targets, and we know at least one person is dead in the UAE as well.
Yeah, I think what's happening right now is extremely dangerous, mainly because Iran is dragging in other countries into this conflict. Now, will the UAE and Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries that Iran are targeting now, or they're targeting the American bases there, will they get involved? If so, I would say it looks very, very gloomy for the Iranian regime. Just the fact that they're facing both the Americans and the Israelis at the same time. If you add all of the Gulf states to that equation, it just makes it all the more difficult for Iran to defend themselves. So I think we're looking at a very, very intensive campaign, and at least days, if not weeks. I think we're going to have to, at least here in Israel, we're going to have to be running back and forth to shelter. And for the Iranians, of course, they're going to have to also seek whatever shelter they can, because some of them live close to military sites and they will be targeted.
Are you surprised at the timing of this and the swiftness, the speed of Iran's response? Clearly, both sides were ready to go here, despite the negotiations that have been going on for some time.
I'm surprised about both. I'm surprised about the timing of the Israeli-American attack, because we've heard for weeks now that it was about to happen. But then, you know, we knew that Marco Rubio was supposed to come to Israel on Monday. I don't think he will at this point. But when they announced that from the American side, I thought, okay, well, it's probably going to wait until after he's left Israel, and the negotiations were technically still ongoing. So I thought that the strike was going to happen next week on Thursday, because that's when Donald Trump's own self-imposed deadline was about to expire. In terms of the Iranian response, I was also surprised how fast they retaliated. We were told in the morning hours that it was probably going to take maybe 12 hours before they gathered all their ballistic missiles and started firing. But they had their finger on the trigger, which is something that they have admitted to having for months. So they were ready. And this is why we saw in the past couple of hours 35 ballistic missiles fired from Iran at Israel.
In regard to what happens next, in regard to where this goes, there are lots of international players who haven't been involved. UN hasn't been involved, UK hasn't been involved. Here in the UK, we're obviously having a reaction, but it really is the US and Israel together. What do you think happens now in terms of global and regional players, Yoram?
I believe that some of the Western allies are going to stand on the sideline. Maybe they're going to try and help shoot down some of the ballistic missiles, but I think that's as far as it goes. You know, many of these Western nations don't want to get their hands dirty. They don't want, even though they know that this is obviously better for the region, to potentially have the Iranian regime removed. Nobody's complaining, at least not behind closed doors, but they don't want to get their hands dirty. They don't want to go in and be seen as, quote unquote, breaking international law. They let the United States and Israel do the dirty work for them. But I'm sure that they're applauding them behind closed doors. What we saw from the Iranian regime in January and February, for that matter, the massacres on that scale is just incomprehensible. And it's incomprehensible that there's basically been no international coalition whipped up to try and stop this. So again,
there's a clear humanitarian cause here, as well as the nuclear points. Yoram, hopefully we'll speak a bit later on in the programme, but for the minute, Thank you. That's Yoram Confino there, our Middle East correspondent. Thank you to James Bealby and Jack Sellers. Very different debate desk this morning, and thank you for that. We'll bring you all the very latest news on all of this. We're a little bit late to the news, but I just want to speak to Yoram there. We'll get your reaction to this big breaking news across the Middle East. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good morning. This is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. The US and Israel have struck Iran, and Iran has struck back to many US military facilities across the Middle East. The leader of Iran has reported strikes. The Israeli president has thanked Trump. The IDF says missile alerts are in place in several areas of the country. We've been in Israel with our correspondent Yoram Confino a moment ago. He has told us about that. We've had political reaction here in the UK. There is travel change from many airports and airlines cancelling flights to various parts in the Middle East. There's at least one person dead in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. That person died after debris fell on a residential area. The Defence Ministry of the UAE reported causing some material damage as well. We know that Iran has said it will give a crushing response to the US and Israel. Its National Security Council says the country's armed forces, the enemy believes that the resilient Iranian nation will surrender to their petty demands. And we know that Sir Keir Starmer is in Cobra this morning, the government's emergency committee. There's a lot happening. The news is changing at many points, and we'll bring you everything on a rolling basis until 12:30, because there's so many different things to report this morning and to react to, and you've been reacting to it, and I want you to continue to do that on 0344 499 1000. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell, send me a voice note less than a minute please, send me a WhatsApp text message, or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. Stay with us here on Talk. Donald Trump has been talking this morning about these combat operations. This is what the President of the United States has been saying.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world.
The President also made a direct appeal and talked about European allies.
Iran refused, just as it has for decades and decades. They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore. Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland.
President Trump also spoke directly to the Iranian people. They have been rising up in recent weeks, brutally repressed by the horrendous regime, tens of thousands of them killed. It was weeks ago now that he said help was on the way. This is what he said.
To the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want. So let's see how you respond.
Let's go to Karen in Bournemouth, who's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000, reacting to what's happening in the Middle East today. Karen, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Oh, good morning, Peter.
Good morning.
It's about Shabana Mahmood. Surely now she will have to proscribe the IRGC and the Muslim Brotherhood.
It's about time both those things happened, especially with what's happening today.
Yeah, she's been avoiding it like the plague. But the other thing as well is that I think this might also help out Ukraine, because isn't Iran the one selling all the drones to Russia and things?
Well, let's hope there is some movement on that, and let's hope we can stop that happening. Karen, it's really interesting what is happening. It's very worrying as well. Keir Starmer is sitting on the sidelines. We're not involved as a country. Should we be, do you think, Karen?
I think we should. I think the Keir Starmer's on the side of the opposite. He's working for the Chinese and stuff. So is Herma.
Well, he would say, of course, that he wants to keep us all safe and keep us out of all of this. Karen, you're very welcome, and thank you so much for giving me a shout this morning at 0344 499 1000. Trump has told the Washington Post that his main concern is freedom for the Iranian people. A brief phone call in the early hours of this morning with the paper, he said he wanted Iran to be a place that is safe. All I want is freedom for the people, he told the Washington Post. Asked about what he hoped his legacy would be as a result of the operation. I want a safe nation, and that's what we are going to have. and the IRGC has the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps say they consider all US bases, resources and interests in the region to be legitimate targets for retaliation. It's a statement from them says, we know the United States is the main factor in today's aggression, with the Zionist regime the sponsor of this aggression. That's the nonsense they usually say. At the same time, we consider both to be one. The IRGC said the armed forces, and especially the IRGC aerospace forces, immediately after the regime's shameless aggression, began retaliatory operations against US bases in the region and the Zionist regime. They're talking about Israel there. We consider all American bases, resources and interests in the region, space and land as the legitimate target of the armed forces. We'll confront the United States and Israel, they said, the Zionist regime, again, stronger than the 12-day war, referring to what happened in the summer there. People should know that there is nothing to worry about, which is something I think quite a number of people would take quite a lot of convincing of. Let's speak to Nicole Lampert, the journalist and campaigner against anti-Semitism, who is with me now. She knows the Middle East well. In fact, we were there together in September as part of a press trip. Nicole, we've spoken to Yoram Confino, we've got various people who will be on the programme throughout the region. Isabel Oakeshott is joining us in a few minutes' time. What is your thought on all of this?
Well, I've been speaking to some Iranians this morning, and this is kind of long awaited for them, and they want this to be the time where they finally are able to get rid of the Ayatollah. So Israel and Iran are obviously planning to help them with that. They are targeting military bases. They are targeting the Ayatollah's IRGC core. What happens next in the rest of the world is going to be interesting. I mean, certainly, as we've seen, Iran is already lashing out not only at Israel, but at various allied countries. But also what happens next in terms of inside Iran is it's not that the anti-IRGC opponents are as one. There are various groups that will then be pushing for power, including the MEK, which is a kind of Islamist communist organization. So although we've heard on the streets many calling for the return of the Crown Prince, Reza Pahlavi, that doesn't necessarily mean that he is going to come, and that there may be a civil war in Iran. So it's kind of non-stop. Certainly, Trump and Israel are hoping this will be short and sharp as the previous war was. But what it means for the Iranian people, and I hope that for them there can be then a smooth transition to what they are hoping will, certainly the pro-Shah ones believe, will be a constitutional monarchy with soon in the future democratic elections.
Let's talk about that more in a second. I've just been told that 5 students in Iran have been killed in those Israeli attacks. The deputy security chief of Hormozgan province, I hope I've pronounced that correctly, has claimed 5 students were killed in today's attacks by Israel, according to the Iranian state Fars news agency. In today's attacks by the Zionist regime, as they put it, Israel, on Minab city, a girls' elementary school was targeted, and so far 5 students have been martyred, according to the official. I mean, we're going to take this with a pinch of salt because the Iranian regime often lies, as we know. But your reaction to that, Nicole?
Well, of course, it's hard to know. And of course, as we know, innocent civilians are killed in wars. Israel has taken the incredible step, really, to send warnings via phone to people saying, you are near military facilities, please move. It's also worth noting that obviously in January there were loads of uprising and thousands, it's believed around 40,000 were killed. Then there was a bit of a lull, and then it kind of picked up again on the 40-day anniversary, which is a very important day for Iranians after someone has died. And it's been picking up again, particularly amongst the students, really for the first time.
Just refresh our memory on those protests. There'll be a lot of people who saw bits of it or maybe have forgotten about what actually happened, because we're focusing, of course, on what's happening militarily, but I want to focus on the humanitarian side as well, because there are so many Iranians living, well, just paint a picture for us how they're living and what they were doing in the last few weeks. You talked there, tens of thousands of people brutally murdered by the regime, arrested, women not having rights, even basic rights, and everybody not having basic rights of free speech. Just tell us how Iranians live and what that uprising was in the last little while.
Yeah, I mean, we start very briefly in 1979. There was a takeover. It was a kind of revolution against the Shah by the Ayatollah, which is hardline Islamist, and kind of that he was backed by the left. So something we've kind of seen repeated in the Greens today, that weird marriage. And of course, the Ayatollah, he killed many of his leftist allies. And we've seen over the last 48 years, really, the Islamicists, the Islamic side of the Islamic Republic of Iran becoming more and more of a stranglehold over Iranians. So we saw women being killed for simply showing their hair in the wrong way. But the Iranians are not Arabs, and this. For many of them that I've spoken to, they see the Islamism as a kind of foreign culture. They are proud Persians, and actually they have a very proud history with Jews and Israelis. But in January, what happened was there was a problem with the economy, which has been getting gradually worse. It started off with shopkeepers in the streets. They were soon joined by thousands of others. And as the demonstrations went on, at first relatively peacefully, then the IRGC, the Ayatollah's army, then turned their guns onto the Iranian people. And not only were they killing them in the streets, they were then following them into hospitals. They killed hospital doctors who would dare to treat them. We've seen mainly young people being arrested, killed, show trials, all sorts of horrors. And certainly these have been, admonished around the world. But I suppose one of the other interesting things is that although we have seen weekly marches in the streets of the UK, this has been done mainly by Iranians, and the left, who have marched for so long against Palestine, have barely said a word about what's been happening to Iran.
Yeah, it's funny how much they claim to care about human rights and women's rights and children's rights as well. And of course, they have not been on those protests, many of them organised brilliantly in London. Just to say, an Israeli official has told the Reuters news agency that joint US-Israeli strikes this morning targeted Iran's supreme leader and its president. They said the results of the strikes are unclear currently. There's been no update on Ali Khamenei and Masoud Pezeshkian from Iran. Earlier, Reuters reported that Khamenei was not in Tehran, according to an Iranian official, and has been transferred to a secure location. Certainly, a lot of what we're being told, and we don't know if this is verified or not, in that this is something of a targeted operation, and certainly the military bases from the Iranian side appear to be targeted as well. But we have reports at least of 6 civilian casualties, and there will be more to come, Nicole, I'm sure.
Yes, exactly. Tragically, this is going to happen, and there may also be casualties in Israel. I know that there have already been injuries, and the Iranians do have they have long-arm missiles, and they are going to be lashing out. So unfortunately, there are going to be many civilians that die in this time. So let's hope that it's a short, sharp mini war as the previous one was, and without too many civilian casualties.
Nicole, thank you. That is Nicole Lampert there, journalist and campaigner against anti-Semitism. Lots to discuss in all of this. Whatever you think, whatever your view, whatever you think the UK should be doing, 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. We'll go through everything that has happened in a minute or two. Quite a number of messages coming in as well, and I will make sure I read out those and take some calls in just a minute here on Talk. Stay with us.
the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. Watching and listening to Talk just got easier. There's now only one place for the home of common sense. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I've just got someone in Nat in Tel Aviv, who's a regular correspondent with this programme, says, "Hi Peter, listening on and off from inside, very poor signal and right outside the public shelter, not been allowed a tea break since the early hours." So that is what's happening in Israel at the moment. We spoke to Yotam Confino about half an hour ago as well. Our correspondent will try and go back to him before the end of the programme. I know the Foreign Office as well evacuated their staff from Tehran in Iran, obviously, and Tel Aviv as well. And knowing this was coming, presumably, or at least anticipating it, Heather is in South Ayrshire and has some thoughts on this situation. She's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Heather, what do you think?
Well, I think I've always firmly supported America and Israel every step of the way, and I'd continue on with this support because that's what this country should do. Keep on supporting our allies because America and US and Israel have always been our allies for years, and we should keep on supporting our allies in Israel and in America.
What do you think about Keir Starmer, Heather? Because he is someone who hasn't really supported these strikes. Certainly he says he stands with America, but we haven't been part of them. Should we have been?
We should keep on out supporting Israel and America every step of the way, but Keir Starmer, he is a threat to our security of this country. He has never supported America. He has never supported Israel because he is too pandering to these jihad terrorists and Ayatollahs in Iran for far too long, and this is the problem here with this Labour government. They are a threat to our security of this country. They do not believe in our security of this country. They never have and they never will be, because this is sheer bloody cowardness of Keir Starmer on his behalf to pandering to these people.
Okay, Heather, listen, thanks for your opinion this morning. I really appreciate it. If you want to join Heather on the air between now and 12:30, 0344 499 1000. Stephen in London says, for all those questioning or appalled at these airstrikes, just think how awful life must be for people like the Iranians to be happy for a foreign power to take out its government or regime. That's a really, really good point, Stephen, and thank you for it. Dawn says Starmer is just worried about losing the UK Muslim vote, which is why he rushed to recognise a Palestinian state. His government also allow anti-Israel chanting, a disgraceful Prime Minister. Paul in Wiltshire says, I hear Keir Starmer is having a Cobra meeting. I feel safer already. Mark in Southampton, excellent from your Tory advisor guest, Peter. Starmer needs to grow a pair. That was Jack there earlier on. We'll hear more from him as time goes on. Leslie says leaders around the world are responding. That excludes Starmer then. He's no leader. Bill in Cheshire, Starmer and defence spending, not a good week to talk about freezing or reducing defence spending, and more great timing from Starmer and Reeves, our world-class comedy duo, says Bill. A Starmer's Cobra meeting, a Starmer going to invite the new Green Plumber to the Cobra meeting, if only to dish out lines of cocaine. No suggestion, of course, that the new MP is involved in any illegal activity or has ever taken drugs. And Bill continues, or will they just be discussing how this new development in the Middle East will affect the Muslim vote in the May elections? Paul in Cornwall, I was following all the flight apps yesterday of what was happening in the Middle East. I have to say that considering we are not involved, there are a lot of RAF planes active in the area. I suspect we are involved perhaps on the periphery, but we're just not shouting about it, says Paul. Well, certainly we've been told that we're not, and maybe they were evacuating those embassies. Maybe that was part of it, Paul, as well. We don't know. Sue says, is Starmer sitting on his hands because there's so much Muslim influence in this country now? Whose side is he on? Not Israel and not the USA. He appears to be pro-China. Mark in Southampton says, excellent from Graham Stringer as always. What on earth is he doing in the Labour Party? Another person says, fed up with the UK. This is a typical weak, woke, vague response from Labour or Liberal or Green politicians. Thank goodness we have Donald Trump to actually act. Our politicians are word soup merchants. Do you know if Isabel Oakeshott is okay? Says Jane. Great show as ever. Well, Jane, we're going to be speaking to Israel. She's fine. To Isabel, apologies. We're going to be speaking to Isabel Oakeshott in just a second. She is in Dubai. We'll talk to her in just a moment and get the latest about what's happening there. Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, Emily Thornberry is the chairwoman of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee this morning. She has said strikes in Iran are ill-advised and illegal. Very interesting about that. And do we have some voice notes, did you say? Yeah, let's see if we can play those. Oh, here we are. Richard has been in touch. This is what Richard says.
Hi, Peter. Just wanted to, it's Richard from Telford, just wanted to comment on this war against Iran. There's absolutely no reason for this. The Iranians had no intention of developing a nuclear bomb. They've said that repeatedly. There was a treaty in place to enable inspectors to go in and check this out. This is all about regime change. It's all part of a greater Israel project, and it's funded by Jewish donors in America. And it's a very, very sad day, I'm afraid. And my prayers go to the poor people in Iran who are going to pay the price for this. Thank you.
Richard, I just don't think that's true about the Jewish donors by any stretch of the imagination. I take your point in regard to regime change. If the Iranian regime changes, I will be very, very happy about that, because they're dreadful, dreadful people. And we're actually going to be speaking to Mehrdad Konsari. He's a former Iranian diplomat, obviously, before the fall of the Shah. He will be with us a little bit later on in the programme. Liam's been in touch about what's happening in Israel.
Hello, Peter. It's Liam in Folkestone. My uncle Graham moved over to Israel in the 1970s as an agricultural guy from Norfolk. And he lives on a kibbutzim just outside of Tel Aviv. And his partner, Itzik, and my two cousins, Roy and Yasmin, are currently holed up in a shelter just outside of Tel Aviv. So I hope they're okay. I hope they're okay. But this is absolutely nuts. This is absolutely nuts. But what Trump is doing is he's selling the Iranians. Not on my watch. Not on my watch.
That's a very interesting opinion, Liam, and I wish you and your family well. Of course, there are many people who have been in those shelters, of course, right throughout the morning, although it's now the afternoon in Israel. Let's go to Dubai, where Isabel Oakeshott is our international editor. Isabel, are you okay?
Absolutely fine, thank you. It is fair to say that there's a bit of a febrile atmosphere here. We know that there has been an explosion in Abu Dhabi, which is not too far away from Dubai, and also certainly sounds of explosions have been heard in Dubai. There was a report about an hour ago of a loud bang in the marina area, which is actually where I live. But at the moment, I would say most people are carrying on as normal. I think there is a sense here that Dubai is generally a very unlikely target. But of course, what you can't calculate for is what regimes in the last gasps of their survival may do, and also the possibility of something going wrong, some sort of missile not quite hitting where it was intended to hit. So whilst I don't want to be complacent about it, you can probably see in the background, people are going about their business here. I'm actually, for various reasons, in the gold market in Dubai, where people are saying, buy gold, buy gold. Of course, they would say that, wouldn't they? But when there is a great deal of nervousness around financial markets, that's what people do. Not why I'm here, by the way, although much as I would like to be filling my pockets.
Yes, indeed. And given the rapidity of this, given the fact that Britain isn't involved, but it says it's supporting the US, I just wonder where you think this goes next, Isabel, because this has all happened very, very quickly.
It really has. And, within moments of that statement, that extraordinary statement from Donald Trump in the White House, there were reports of attacks on military bases in the wider region, US military bases. And where do I think this goes? Well, Donald Trump has made his determination crystal clear. It was actually, I think, one of the best statements that he has ever made. He didn't go off script. There was no kind of rambling, no meandering. It is very clear what the US intends. Nothing less than the end of the mad mullah Iranian regime. And how long this takes, that's the other question. Clearly, Iran, the regime itself is not just going to go quietly, but everything has been calculated. That's why it's taken so long. I think there was a lot of frustration, obviously, in Iran itself amongst those protesters who risked their lives, and many of them tragically lost their lives. There's summary executions of innocent, beautiful young people who were only fighting for their freedom at the time that Donald Trump was saying help is on its way. And then there was a huge gap, wasn't there, of several weeks before this help arrived.
Yes.
And it may now be swift. Let us hope that it will be. But these things are tremendously unpredictable. I thought it was very significant that Donald Trump did say, and he said, I'm not saying this lightly, that American lives will be lost. And there clearly is a calculation that the Iranian regime will strike back, and strike back where they can hard.
Yes, and they have done that already in various parts of the Middle East. It'll be very interesting to see where else they do that. Here in the UK, I'm just being told that the Cobra meeting is finished in Downing Street. Where do you see Keir Starmer's position in all of this? Anywhere?
Well, he's not part of this play, is he? He's made it very clear to the US that we're not prepared to have our bases used. And that puts us out of the picture, really. Whether that means that the UK is entirely safe from the military repercussions of this, that is another question. Because, of course, there are a huge amount of Iranians living in the UK. Now, the vast majority of those, as we know from the protests that have been taking place on the streets of London, are fully supportive of the replacement of the Iranian regime. But who knows what sleeper cells may be in the UK. There have, unfortunately, in recent years been attempted terror operations by assets of the Iranian state. We know this. About a year ago, I think, there was this attempt, fortunately foiled by our brilliant security services. So there may be implications, but at this point, the UK is not actively involved.
And when you think about the places where there are US military bases, like Dubai, like Kuwait, like Saudi Arabia, what do you think the risk is that this can escalate very, very quickly into a full-out regional conflict? Or will there be strong efforts to contain that and for that not to happen?
Well, of course, there will be strong efforts to contain that. And yet there is, of course, a risk. The UAE has partially, I don't know whether it's now fully, but certainly about an hour ago, partially closed airspace, as what they called a temporary and precautionary measure. Flights in and out of Dubai are very, very disrupted over the foreseeable future, I think, in the next few days. So there's an expectation that this is something very, very serious, that this will be a fairly prolonged period of serious instability and the possibility of casualties in places that perhaps one wouldn't expect.
What do you make of Israel's role in all of this, apparently working in concert with the US for these strikes? Obviously, they are the number one enemy of Iran, and there've been many people in shelters, of course, throughout the morning, and that will, I'm sure, continue for some time. What's the price here? What's the reward, do you think?
Well, the reward is nothing less than the total realignment of geopolitics in the Middle East. You know, Iran, everything stems from Iran, doesn't it? So much of the sponsoring of terror in other parts of the Middle East and beyond stems from that evil Iranian regime. So the prize is potentially absolutely historic here. And for Israel, this is, in a sense, the day that they have long dreamed of. You know, when Donald Trump gave that statement from the White House, he was talking about grudges is probably not the right word, but
I think we've just lost Isabel Oakeshott there. But listen, I heard what she was saying was absolutely fascinating in regard to Israel, in regard to Iran and the Middle East. Whatever you think, let us know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. And Leslie says, I got my sick bucket ready for when Starmer stands at the podium draped in the Union flag, spouting his word soup of appeasement. He is shameful. Stephen Millings in Belfast says, almost as scary as Trump's response is that Starmer has been sharing this Cobra meeting. He is blooming useless uniquely at foreign and domestic service affairs. And another person says, we need more Green Party supporters on the media to be fully scrutinised on their dangerous sectarian divisive politics. Well, Leslie, you may know that I'm leaving this particular programme today and tomorrow, the Saturday and Sunday shows, to take on the evening shows between 7 and 10, and I definitely want some Green politicians on there this week. So I hope you can join me between 7 and 10 every night this week, Monday to Friday. This is my final Saturday show, but I will be doing tomorrow's Sunday show, and despite the incredibly serious things that we're covering today, tomorrow there may be some light relief towards the end of the programme, and maybe even the return of a couple of features for a little one-off. You never know. But listen, we'll continue to talk about Iran. We've got a former diplomat in Iran who will be with us in a second, obviously, before the Shah, Mehrdad Konsari, and some more voice note calls, texts and tweets. However you want to get in touch with us, 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
The Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. Watching and listening to talk just got easier. There's now only one place for the home of common sense. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks everybody who has sent in voice notes to the programme. 0344 499 1000 is the way to do it. Same way you send a voice note to anybody else. Rob has sent this in.
Good morning, Pete. It's Rob here in Stourbridge, mate. Peter, we all know why Keir Starmer hasn't backed Donald Trump and the Americans in this attack on Iran is because it'll affect his voter base, won't he? You know, he can't be seen backing the president in an attack on Iran. No, his voter base will go straight down. And another thing, Pete, even if we wanted to, what army have we got, mate? What navy have we got? What air force have we got? We've got a few soldiers, we've got a few battleships which don't work, or even fire missiles, and our air force. Well, the last I heard, we had a few planes, mate, and that's it. So what are we going to do? We're going to sit there with our pea shooters. Ping, ping, ping. Come on, man. We've got a useless army, a useless government, and a useless country. And I'm a patriot, and I'm saying that from my heart, mate. We're just useless.
Rob, thanks for that. I can hear the frustration in your voice. I can hear how, you know, talking about the Army, the Navy, and how things have been depleted for such a long time. So many brave people have served over the years and serve at the moment, but could we actually be involved even if we wanted to? I think those are all very, very good points. Just to update you, Iran says its response will be crushing. We know that US and Israel have struck Iran this morning. We know as well that Israel has closed its airspace. Iran has closed its airspace as well. And the IDF, the Israeli army, has continued to strike in western Iran. Sared Davey is the latest person to give his reaction politically. He's called on the Prime Minister to rule out allowing the US to use UK air bases to strike Iran. This is the Liberal Democrat leader saying the UK can't be dragged into another protracted Middle Eastern war by a US president. Keir Starmer needs to rule out the use of UK bases for any future unilateral US strikes. The Iranian people deserve to live free from a brutal regime. Donald Trump's unilateral and illegal military action won't deliver freedom, peace and security. It will only unleash more bloodshed. Well, okay, fair enough, Sared, but how do Iranian people live free from a brutal regime? If not military intervention, they've risen up at various points and that has not been successful. We're hoping to speak in a second to a former Iranian diplomat. In the meantime, I want to speak to Ian in London, who's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Ian, what do you think?
I think personally, Peter, you just put it in a nutshell, really. All these people like Emily Thornberry, the Liberal Democrats, the Green Party, it's really, they know, they want the change there. and they just don't want to help because they think it's helping Israel, right? But it's not. It's the Iranian people that want to be released from a real tyranny there.
Yes. And right, I mean, well, you're absolutely right, Ian. And they're the ones who are putting their lives on the line on a daily basis. They are protesting, even to speak out, even to join a protest on the streets, even not to wear a headscarf. These are risks that Iranian people are taking very, very bravely. Tens of thousands of them have been murdered by their regime and continue to be. Yet we have all this hand-wringing here saying, oh, I don't know, we don't know. And Ed Davey saying they deserve to live free from a brutal regime. But in the next sentence says Donald Trump's unilateral and illegal military operation won't deliver freedom, peace and security. Well, he doesn't know that.
Yeah, and it's Thornberry. Do you remember a few years ago she shared a platform with one of the Hamas leaders and everything else and terrorists?
I don't know about that. No, I wasn't. I just, if she has, I'm not aware of it. Anyway,
2015. She shared the new. Right, when she was the Shadow Defence Secretary.
We know certainly that other people in the Labour Party at the time and previously, like Jeremy Corbyn, for example, he called Hamas friends. But I just don't know about Emily Thornberry. But you apparently do. Okay, all right.
No, but she did. But really, as you say, there's a tyranny in Iran that are doing all this sort of killing their own people, which is like a genocide. Nobody says a word. The word never comes up, right? Unless it's sort of people that speak the truth. But the others try to hide it. They try to hide it because it doesn't involve Israel. Now Israel is trying to help because it's for their.
Yeah.
Anybody here?
It's a very interesting point. Suddenly everybody cares because Israel's involved.
Yeah, but more to the point, would they like it here? Which, like, you know, many years ago with Cuba, that you've got missiles with nuclear warheads. Iran has never said they're not wanting to build a nuclear sort of arsenal.
Yep.
They want to build it.
Yep.
And everybody, it's not like Iraq when Saddam Hussein, they didn't know with Tony Blair. Here they're actually admitting they're building nuclear sort of things. And they still, even if it was fired, they wouldn't care, you know, and it makes a lot that you've got Qatar, not something more Qatar, that's a different story altogether, but Dubai, Bahrain, all of them want to live in peace with Israel, and they're being bombed. And you know, if they're the ones that sort of saying they're getting involved,
well, and without wanting to be, and we've seen lives lost already apparently in Dubai. Ian, listen, thank you for that, and thanks to Steve who's texted me to say Trump just doesn't trust Starmer. It's as simple as that. Starmer will be kissing the backside of the UK-based imams, he says. Listen, let's talk to a former Iranian diplomat, that is Mehrdad Konsari, who is with me now. It's great to talk to you. What do you make of what has happened this morning? A scary time, but also presumably one of hope for your people as well.
Well, obviously, you know, you have to, the bright side of everything is if at the end of these operations we can see the back of the Islamic regime that has tormented and, you know, destroyed the peace and prosperity of our people for the past 47 years. However, you know, matters are never as simple as that, you know, and whether airstrikes alone, even if carried out for a length of time, just as we witnessed in the 12-day war that we had last June with Israel, in which the United States at the end ultimately joined, resulted in a great deal of damage, something around $30 to $100 billion worth of damage in terms of property, assets of the country. Assets, I have to stress, does not belong to the regime. It belongs to the entire Iranian nation. And about 1,100 Iranians having nothing to do with the regime were killed. Over 5,000 people were injured. So, and at the end of the day, the regime was still there and intact and not even on the verge of collapse. So we have to see what happens, to what extent this current wave of attacks, is it aimed at just, you know, getting rid of the missiles or nuclear facilities?
Well, what do you think? What's your instinct here? Is there simply a security and defense aspect to this? Is that what it's really about? Or do you think Donald Trump and Israel really care about the Iranian people? They clearly want regime change, but are the human rights of Iranians uppermost in their mind as well?
Well, again, the term you used, uppermost, is the one that has to be, to be sort of dissected.
Indeed.
I don't believe that the welfare or the future or the prosperity of the Iranian people is upper mind, is on their upper mind. It is perhaps something that they are concerned with, but they have much greater priorities. Their primary priority is to remove any threat from the Islamic regime being able to impose any kind of a policy that can damage any, in the case of Israel, as they say, their existential threat to them in terms of the United States threatening its allies in the Persian Gulf region and so on. And removing the threat of Iran becoming a nuclear power or having the means for delivering nuclear weapons or attacking others. That is, I think, first and foremost on their mind. Obviously, President Trump came and said during the recent unrest in Iran that he would come to the support of the Iranian people. These attacks can be construed as a gesture on his part for having come to the support of the Iranian people, even if regime change is not at the end of is not the final outcome. But getting rid of the regime is a more complex thing. And really, quite honestly, I have been doing this, following these events and doing things like this for the past at least 45 years. And I can't honestly say whether this will result in that sort of...
Are you cautious about being optimistic at the moment?
Well,
because there have been so many times, presumably previously, when you have been and have been disappointed.
I am hopeful that the Islamic regime may be gotten rid of. But the point is, at what cost? And
let's talk about that just for a second. Just to say, loud bangs have been heard in Qatar a few minutes ago, but in Iran, and that cost, the human cost, Iranian state media will be cautious about this, but I'll tell you, Iranian state media is saying that 40 girls have been killed in an Israeli strike on a school. This is Iranian state media talking about a school in Minab County. According to the semi-official Fars news agency, the number of martyrs, as they call them, in Minab Girls Primary School has reached 40, apparently 48 students also injured. If that is true, well, we know that there is a clear humanitarian cost to what is happening at the moment, and that is part of the cost of this action already that we've seen this morning, Mehrdad.
There is no question about that. I heard this news about 10-15 minutes ago, and I was conferring with someone, and they told me that some of these missile bases or missile launching sites, they have constructed them near these schools, or just like Hamas did in hospitals and things like that in Gaza.
Deliberately doing that so they wouldn't be targeted.
I honestly don't know the validity of these things, but the fact is that those children who were killed, they have no part in any of this.
Of course.
They are collateral damage, and that is very sad. And as I said, as someone who has opposed the Islamic regime for many, many years, I don't take any joy in seeing my country attacked or, our people getting killed and things like that. But at the end of the day, I think that this will increase pressures on the Islamic regime, and you have to look at we have witnessed similar actions being taken in Iraq or in Syria, and the Syrian civil war started in a way which is similar to this. The public were encouraged to stand up against the regime. They were armed, and look what it led to. These are the kind of fears that ordinary citizens in Iran have.
Mehrdad,
not that they don't want the outcome.
Of course, but they
are afraid of how things would go. And of course, excuse me, and look at what has happened in the region, Iran attacking Kuwait or UAE or these things. These are the kind of things that could get out of hand, and lead to certain outcomes that nobody has forecast and really get everyone clogged up in a situation that nobody wants.
You're absolutely right. I wonder, you're in London, Mehrdad, if I remember correctly. What do you think about the UK's response to this? Because we've had the chairwoman of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, Emily Thornberry of Labour, Dame Emily Thornberry, saying that she thinks it's illegal and shouldn't happen. We have the Prime Minister who has confirmed that the UK has had no role in this. Should it have?
Well, I think the UK has, I mean, let's put it this way. The legal framework for this action can be questioned. Just as many people in the United States have questioned President Trump for having launched this attack without any kind of, consultation or acceptance by the US Congress. That's a different issue. The UK has been supportive of the position that the West has generally had. In this particular instant, they are acting in a much more conservative way in order to try and be able to help the regional states. You have to look at it, the regional Gulf states, and to be able to act as some sort of a medium between them and the Islamic regime in order to contain things. There are considerations of those natures, but as somebody who just says, should the UK support any action against a murderous regime, obviously everybody says yes, and questions any sort of conservative behavior in expressing those wishes. But it's a bit more complicated than all that.
Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate that. That's Mehrdad Konsari there, who's a former Iranian diplomat, obviously, before the fall of the Shah. Lots of people getting in touch, including Steve, who says, surely a state of emergency should be called for now on our border with France closed. Chris in Newbury says, Peter, the reaction of the left to the US taking action against the murdering despots of Iran should worry us all. The UK will not be able to take any action in the Middle East, however large the threat within one generation. The left needs the Muslim vote more than it desires UK safety, says Chris in Newbury. I will be talking after the break to two major figures in the diplomatic relations in the world previously. One is John Bolton, the former national... sorry, John Bolton isn't joining us. Edmund Fitton-Brown is the former UK ambassador to Yemen and a former coordinator of UN sanctions and threat assessment. He's also a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defence of Democracy. We'll talk to him. What do you think about this? Keep sending in your voice notes. Keep giving us a ring. 0344 499 1000. We're going to be here right until 12:30. There's so much to talk about this morning. It's a very, very busy show. It's exactly the kind of show that I like doing, not because of obviously horrible things are happening throughout the world, but it's informing you, it's letting you know what's happening. This is my last Saturday show. I'm going to be moving to the weekdays between 7 and 10, Monday to Friday, and I hope you can join me for those. But for the meantime, I'm here until 12:30. Plenty to discuss today. Give us a shout, let us know what you think.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, the whole show today is about the biggest story in the world. That is that Iran has been attacked by Israel and the US. They have retaliated against various countries, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia. This is a major, major thing. There are many flights, for example, cancelled from the UK. Keir Starmer has just been chairing COBRA this morning, the government's emergency committee. No words from that, but we'll bring it to you when we can. We're on for the next half an hour and I want your reaction. 0344 499 1000. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. Send me a voice note, less than a minute please, to the main number. You can send a WhatsApp text message to the main number or give me a ring on the main number 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss here on Talk. Stay with us for the next half hour. I just want to read out a couple of messages before we remind ourselves what the President of the United States has been saying. Tad in Cambridge: should we ever forget how dangerous religious fundamentalists are, we need to look no further than the evil regime in Iran, says Tad. Yet domestic politicians in the UK seem to want to pack our once green and pleasant land with the same tyrants. I say good riddance. Titch says how many pro-Iran regime sleepers are hidden, waiting amongst us, ready for action if we fully back the USA and Israel in this conflict. Rosalind says, I think we should have allowed our air bases to be used. Lucy says the nuclear threat can be slowed. This battle was always coming. So when there is inevitable strife and Trump is blamed, it's best to remember the Ayatollah was never immortal. This day was inevitable. Well, speaking of Donald Trump, this is what he's been saying about these major combat operations that have been happening in the last few hours, changing the face of the Middle East. This is what the President of the United States has said.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world.
We've had some fantastic analysis today. One of my absolute favourite analysts of the Middle East is Edmund Fitton-Brown, who joins me now, former UK ambassador to Yemen, former coordinator of UN sanctions and threat assessment, a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defence of Democracy. Edmund, thank you for joining me. I know it's the morning where you are in Washington. What is your take on this? Did you see it coming? What can we expect to happen now?
Thanks, Peter, and it's great to be back with you. First of all, nobody ever knows the exact timing. We had some sense that this was imminent, but you still end up, as I did, being woken up in the middle of the night and realizing that it has happened. We could tell from the progress or non-progress of the negotiations that had been going on between the Americans and the Iranians that the two sides were so far apart that there was no chance of an agreement. And if there was no chance of an agreement, with the Americans having assembled so much firepower in the region, and with the Iranians having, of course, insulted Trump and trampled all over his red lines when they started slaughtering protesters in Iran last month, it was inevitable this was going to come to conflict. So no surprise, but of course, it's a somber moment, and it's very important that this conflict resolved successfully.
How do you think it can?
Well, first of all, the US has gone big here. It's in association with Israel. Of course, it's a very close alliance, close military alliance, perhaps an even closer intelligence alliance. It was always going to be the case that the US would be operating with a great deal of Israeli input here. But this is definitely a US-led operation, and it's been done to Donald Trump's timetable. They have gone after the sites that you would expect. They were concerned about rebuilding at the nuclear facilities. They've attacked those. They've also attacked all sorts of regime command and control, IRGC and Basij premises. They've attacked the compound in Tehran where the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is normally resident, although, of course, there there were signs that he may have been moved from that last month during the protests. We don't know whether he went back to it, so we have no idea. We've seen the damage at the compound, but we don't know who was there at the time that it was struck. We've also seen attacks all around the country. We've also, of course, seen some Iranian retaliation, which so far has been quite modest. It's been against US bases in 4 of the Arabian Peninsula Arab states, and also some attempts to attack Israel. But so far, in my view, it's not that Iran has been unwilling to retaliate. I think its capability is limited.
How do you think its capability is limited, and what could that mean?
So the capability is limited because of the conflict last year. You know, they took an absolute hammering from Israel in June last year. The Israelis suppressed their air defenses, took out a lot of their missiles, and of course then the US delivered the coup de grace at the end of that 12-day war, attacking the nuclear facilities. The Iranians have been energetically rebuilding, but with limited success. They still, you know, it's not to say that they can't strike. And by the way, you know, the Israelis are in a defensive posture. They're absolutely aware that there's a risk to their civilians from Iranian retaliation. But it is striking that the Iranians haven't done very much yet. The Saudis have made an angry denunciation of the Iranian attacks that have affected Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Bahrain. But again, these have been attacks that have not had very much impact. And of course, you know, again, when the US has been preparing this for some time with the Israelis, they will have suppressed some of the Iranian capability already. So we mustn't be complacent. But the signs are, first of all, that the attacks themselves have had a great deal of effect. And secondly, that the Iranian retaliation has been successfully suppressed to some degree.
Tell us about the fact that diplomacy was ongoing for some time here, some would argue for decades, but certainly between the US and Iran for some time. When did you think that that was probably going to lead to military action? We've heard, of course, from the president within the last week or so, but it was actually many weeks ago that he was talking about the humanitarian situation, the many people who have been repressed by the regime. How much is that part of the thinking around this? Regime change would presumably lead to better rights for people, but it may not, as we have seen on so many occasions historically.
Absolutely, it's uncertain how this will come out. I think there are some reasons for optimism, but certainly not for complacency. I think you're right that the events in January are highly relevant here. Donald Trump was actually said in terms, if you start shooting your protesters, then we will get involved. Now, at the time, the US didn't follow through on that threat. But of course, you can see from the way that the US has marshaled its forces in the region that there was an element there of the US not being ready to respond immediately. Now, it was interesting that the Iranian protests, and it's important to say that these protests had never fully died out. And we have had renewed protests at some Iranian universities.
Well, and there are so many people who just believe that they've gone away, and so much of the media have been ignoring them. We know, of course, that there have been blocks on information coming out of Iran. We know that there have been internet blocks and so on. But as you say, these people have been very, very bravely standing up to the regime for some time and continuously.
Peter, you're so right, and I'm so glad that you've been highlighting that because, as you say, a lot of people have been almost willfully ignoring it, which I find, really puzzling. The Iranian
yes,
people
it's funny, isn't it, Edmund, how there are so many people who will take to the streets for the repression and human rights issues in Gaza, the oppression of women there, but somehow are nowhere to be found when it comes to Iran and what is clearly happening there.
Well, let's be brutally frank. The Iranian Islamic Republic is on the side of Hamas, which means that if you're a Westerner and you're on the side of Hamas, you actually have, at the very best, you have mixed feelings about the liberation of the Iranian people. You may even support the people who are murdering the Iranian people, which is a very strange position to adopt if you claim to be a human rights activist.
Absolutely correct. Speaking of the human rights element of this, and speaking of what's happening in the UK, we have had the chairwoman of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee saying this is illegal and shouldn't have happened. The leader of the Liberal Democrats saying similar things. The UK can't be dragged into another protracted Middle East war. We know from the government, and Keir Starmer has just been chairing a Cobra emergency meeting this morning, Edmund, that's finished in the last 40 minutes or so, that the UK had no real involvement here. Are they just a bystander in all of this, and should they continue to be?
Yeah, and by the way, I hate to think what the Greens are going to say about it. But yes, the UK is a little bit of a bystander here, and of course we've had this dispute over the bases in the Indian Ocean. So the UK needs to be careful here. It is in danger of looking like an irrelevance, and there is a kind of a right side of history point here, because if the Islamic Republic is brought down and you actually have a new government emerge in Iran that becomes an ally of the United States or an ally of Israel. And this is not impossible. This could happen because the Iranian people have been so sick of the Islamic Republic, they are ready for a very profound change of direction. Now, I would hate it if the UK were to look as if it had simply sat on the sidelines.
Edmund, as always, thank you very much indeed. Edmund Fitton-Brown there, former UK ambassador to Yemen and former coordinator of UN sanctions and threat assessment, a senior fellow too at the Foundation for the Defence of Democracy. I just find his analysis absolutely superb. There's a satellite image as well showing destruction at the Supreme Leader's compound. This was taken today, showing black smoke and extensive damage at the compound of Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. At least 4 buildings have been struck at the compound in central Tehran. It was taken at 11:06 local time, which is 7:36 UK time. I want to play a few more voice notes to get your reaction to what is happening. We're going to be speaking to John LaBoutier as well, former congressman in the US, in a few minutes' time. But let me just play what Andrew has said.
Good morning, Peter. It's Andrew from Halifax. I'd just like to say that I'm very pleased with events, because although radical Islam had its little moment in Gorton and Denton yesterday, it's certainly getting one hell of a kick in Tehran this morning, and that's good enough for me. Cheers, have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Andrew. Nick's been in touch.
Very good morning to you, Peter. It's Nick from Loughborough. For far too long, Iran and Tehran have been the nerve centre for Islamist terrorism throughout the world. And for far too long, liberal Western democracies have been reluctant to acknowledge that, let alone do anything about it. And finally, Donald Trump, whom I'm not an advocate of all the while, has come along and is prepared to lance the biggest boil on the world at the moment. And I wish him well, and I think in the end it will be doing us all a favour. Peter, have a very good weekend. And by the way, I'm really sad to see that you're leaving the weekend show from tomorrow. God bless you.
Nick, thank you for that, and I really appreciate that. I am not going too far, though, to Monday to Friday, 7 till 10, and Nick, I really hope you can continue sending in those brilliant voice notes that you do, and so many people do. We have great regulars and great people who just send in one voice note and then you never hear from them again, and that's fine too. But Nick, honestly, you bring such common sense to the programme, and I hope you continue to do that in the evenings, and I'll hear your voice notes, or even give me a ring sometime. Debbie has another voice note.
Good morning, Peter. Debbie here from Cornwall. Yes, I'm just responding to the strikes in Iran, which I support. I mean, clearly there will be casualties, which is heartbreaking. Nobody wants that. But it is time for the world to stand up and pay attention to the Islamic movement. I mean, just let's have a look what's happening in the UK. And just this week, that a party has been sabotaged by the, in my view, the Islamist extremist for their own benefit, and to, you know, take control of our nation, basically. That's how I see it. Anyway, good show. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Debbie. And just to let you know, tomorrow we're going to have the Shadow Foreign Secretary, Priti Patel. She will be joining us on the programme, as will Richard Tice from Reform UK. He's their Deputy Leader and Shadow Business Secretary. One more voice note before the break from Simon.
Hi, Peter. Simon from Ringwood. Regarding what's going on as we speak, as we type, as we write in the Middle East, all I can say is I'm glad you're at the helm, because you bring it all together so well. Talk radio brings it all in concisely, precisely and up to date, and it's fantastic news coverage. And keep up the good work, Cardi B. Thank you.
Simon, what a lovely message. Thank you very much for that. And yes, the last 4.5 years on this Saturday programme have been a real thrill, have been a pleasure, have been great. We're going to be paying tribute to the team as well tomorrow properly on the show, because tomorrow is my last weekend show. But listen, thank you. We have quite limited resources here on the weekend sometimes, but I think we've done a reasonable job today against some of the bigger boys. Lots more to discuss in just a second. We're going to be speaking to John LaBoutiere, who former US Congressman, for his take on all of this. You still have time to get your calls, text, tweets and voice notes in. 0344 499 1000. We're here until 12:30. Stay with us.
The Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. Watching and listening to Talk just got easier. There's now only one place for the home of common sense. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you so much to everybody who has got in touch, including Geraint in Cowbridge, who says another beneficial consequence of the Iranian attacks this morning is that Russia will lose a major arms supplier. Dawn says it's worrying but not surprising to hear from Ed Davey and the Greens that they don't support action against Iran. Emily Thornberry too, it must be said, the chairwoman of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. If ever these people were in power, Russia, China and North Korea would be really happy, says Dawn. Ian in Oldham says, interesting chat with the ex-Iranian diplomat, and when he spoke about the cost of Trump's action, I would have asked him about the cost of not taking any action. Well, that is a very good point, Ian, and thank you for it. Peter's in Sussex and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Peter, you're very welcome to the programme. This is just developing all the time. Mohammed Pakpur, who is the commander of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, apparently eliminated by the Israeli decapitation strikes in Iran. What do you make of what's going on, Peter?
Well, I've just listened to your. I just came out first thing. I've just listened to your commentary of that guy from the Iranian guy. Actually speaks common sense, and also your last guy, who was from America.
Yeah, Edmund Fitton Brown. He was the former ambassador to Yemen. He knows a lot about the region.
As that voice call you had just a second ago, you wouldn't get any of this on BBC, ITV, Sky, and you're doing a fantastic job.
Well, that's really kind, Peter. That's really kind.
It is, because without you, and I mean this 100% and from the heart, without you, we would never get a balanced view,
Well,
and
that's really kind, Peter.
If you listen to the BBC, it's, Trump's a horrible man, this, that and the other. And then you've got this government who's sucking up to these Islamists for votes. And you've got Trump, who tried to the dialogue, but unfortunately they didn't want to play ball. So in the end, he's had to take serious action.
Did you support him in that, Peter?
Yeah, there's always going to be collateral damage to children. I mean, this is what these terrorists do. They put their arms where children are, just like Hamas did, and they know if they get bombed, they're going to get propaganda out of it. And I just think that it's so sad, but like in any war of over history, there's always people, innocent people, that get hurt, killed, maimed, and I just think that if we don't stop this this thing. You saw it on Thursday with Greens being overtaken, and I just think if we don't stem it, as that guy said, cut the lights off the boil. If we don't, this will grow and grow, and they will take over, and then the Trumps of this world, we're never going to do it. You know, as I say, they won't be able to because it'll be too gone. It'll be like a cancer. It'll be all over the world.
Peter,
I back him 100%.
Thank you, Peter. I really appreciate your common sense there, and also your very nice words about the station. So I appreciate that. It is a team effort. Just to remind you that Richard Tice, the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, and their business spokesman will be with us tomorrow, as will the Shadow Foreign Secretary, Pradeep Patel. We're working on the government. We'll see if we can get someone from there as well. The people behind the scenes are working on that. John LeBoutier is a former US Congressman. John, from an American perspective, how much support is there likely to be for what President Trump has done here? Someone who famously in his first administration was very much against military intervention, but times have changed.
Well, Peter, yeah. And the thing is, the support he's going to get is not from his base. It'll be elsewhere. Pro-Israel, hawks, anti-Iranian people, those who don't mind using the military to intervene overseas. The MAGA base will not be enthralled with this thing. But if it happens quickly, and I think the point of this entire mission is to decapitate the government of Iran.
And it does appear that some of that has happened, John. According to assessments, Mohammad Pakpur, the commander of Iran's IRGC, has been eliminated. That is a good thing. John, are you there? I think we have perhaps lost John LeBoutier there, but we got some of his wisdom on that. Certainly this is a really dynamic situation. UN rights chief urging all parties to see reason. Donald Trump saying Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. There's so much that has happened this morning with these strikes on Iran. The satellite image as well coming into our newsroom taken today showing black smoke and extensive damage at the compound of Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. At least 4 buildings have been struck at his compound in central Tehran, but we've also been told that he is not there, and that, of course, that damage will have happened. That may well have been evacuated. It's hard to know, of course. It's interesting the political reaction here in the UK as well, because Keir Starmer, who's been chairing COBRA, the government's emergency committee, this morning, nothing has come out of that so far that I have seen. We know as well that there will be a reaction from the Conservatives, Kemi Badenoch welcoming this, but Ed Davey calling on the Prime Minister to rule out allowing the US and UK bases to strike Iran. John's on the phone. Just briefly, John, before the end of the show, what do you think happens next?
Well, we got cut off at the point of this discussion of decapitating the Iranian government, which I think
finish that point by all means.
Goal here. Yeah, I think that is the goal. I think it's what Israel has been signaling that they wanted to do that since the October 7, 2023 raid by Hamas. Their target always was the Tehran government, which funded all of the terrorism in the Middle East. So this is less about the nuclear program and more about decapitating that government. Now, the question is, how long does it take, and what comes in the immediate aftermath? Do the people rise up, or does some madman take over, or does the military even more take over? I have no idea, and no one else does either. And that's what we've got to watch today, tomorrow, the next day. Does the IRGC, if the mullahs are gone, if the Ayatollah is killed, who is the face of that government? We don't know, but it's a gamble here that whatever comes next can't be as bad as what we've had there since 1979.
Well, let's hope that that's the case, and let's hope the Iranian people get peace, freedom and the human rights that they deserve. John LeBoutier, former US Congressman, thank you. I want to thank everybody else who has been involved with the programme today. It's been a dynamic, moving situation here in the newsroom, as well as everything that's happening in the Middle East, of course, as well. Chris Jacobs, the producer, Dave Rhodes, the technical operator, Tommy Bateson, assistant producer, Davis Fang and Luke Vincent have been the visual producers. Connor Slattery, the video editor, and Dean Spencer has been the weekend editor. Thanks too for the lovely messages. Tomorrow's the last show, so we'll perhaps I will save the tears until then, but we will see the return of Tech Up Dave and a couple of little features to put a smile on your face that may have been lost in the sands of time, but we'll be returning for just one more time on my final Sunday show. Linda says, we will miss you on the weekends, but we'll be tuning in on weekdays, Peter, says Linda. Thank you. And Christine says, I'm going to miss you on Saturday and Sunday mornings, but I'll be joining you during the week, Cardi P. Well, that's great, and that is the news that I'm moving to 7 till 10, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, and Alex Phillips will be taking over these shows on Saturday and Sunday. So loads to talk about tomorrow. Priti Patel and Richard Tice will be on the show. I'll see you at 10 tomorrow.